Boy Scouts of America v. Dale. Chief Justice Rehnquist delivered the opinion of the court. Petitioners are the Boy Scouts of America and the Monmouth Council, a division of the Boy Scouts of America, collectively Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts is a private, not-for-profit organization engaged in instilling its system of values in young people. The Boy Scouts asserts that homosexual conduct is inconsistent with the values it seeks to instill. Respondent is, James Dale, a former Eagle Scout whose adult membership in the Boy Scouts was revoked when the Boy Scouts learned that he was an avowed homosexual with gay rights activists. The New Jersey Supreme Court held that New Jersey's public accommodations law requires that the Boy Scouts admit Dale. This case presents the question whether applying New Jersey's public accommodations law in this way violates the Boy Scouts' First Amendment right of expressive association. We hold that it does. That's the issue and the holding. Kind of the facts. James Dale entered scouting in 1978 at the age of 8 by joining Monmouth Council's Cub Scout. Dale became a Boy Scout in 1981 and remained a Scout until 2022. By all accounts, Dale was an exemplary Scout. In 1988, he achieved the rank of Eagle Scout, one of the Scouting's highest honors. Dale applied for adult membership in the Boy Scouts in 1989. The Boy Scouts approved his application for the position of Assistant Scoutmaster of Troop 73. Around the same time, Dale left home to attend Rutgers University. After arriving at Rutgers, Dale first acknowledged to himself and others that he is gay. He quickly became involved with and eventually became the co-president of Rutgers University Lesbian-Gay Alliance. In 1990, Dale attended a seminar addressing the psychological and health needs of lesbian and gay teenagers. A newspaper covering the event interviewed Dale about his advocacy of homosexual community's need for gay role models. In early July of 1990, the newspaper published the interview and Dale's photograph over a caption identifying him as co-president of the Lesbian-Gay Alliance. Later that month, Dale received a letter from Monmouth Council Executive James Kay revoking his adult membership. Dale wrote to Kay requesting the reason for Monmouth's council decision. Kay responded by letter that the Boy Scouts specifically forbid membership to homosexuals. In 1992, Dale filed a complaint against the Boy Scouts in the New Jersey Superior Court. The complaint alleged that the Boy Scouts had violated New Jersey's public accommodation statute and its common law by revoking Dale's membership based solely on his orientation. New Jersey's public accommodation statute prohibits, among other things, discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation in places of public accommodation. In New Jersey Supreme Court held that the Boy Scouts was a place of public accommodation subject to the public accommodation law, that the organization was not exempt from the law under any of the express exceptions, and that the Boy Scouts violated the law by revoking Dale's membership based on his homosexuality. The forced inclusion of an unwanted person in a group infringes the group's freedom of expressive association if the presence of that person affects in a significant way to the group's ability to advocate public or private viewpoints. But the freedom of expressive association, which is kind of a new element that I didn't see before, if it affects, so that's kind of the infringement, affects in a significant way the group's ability to advocate public or private viewpoints. But the freedom of expressive association, like many freedoms, is not absolute. We have held that the freedom can be overridden by regulations adopted to serve compelling state interests unrelated to the suppression of ideas that cannot be achieved through means significantly less restrictive of associational freedoms. To determine whether a group is protected by the First Amendment expressive associational right, we must determine whether the group engages in expressive association. That's the test. Step number 1. The First Amendment protection of expressive association is not reserved for advocacy groups, but to come within its ambit, a group must engage in some form of expression, whether it be public or private. The Boy Scout is a private non-profit organization. According to its mission statement, it is the mission of the Boy Scouts of America to serve others by helping to instill values in young people and in other ways to prepare them to make ethical choices over their lifetime in achieving their full potential. The values we strive to instill are based on those found in the Scout Oath and Law. On my honor, I will do my best and do my duty to God and my country, and to obey the Scout Law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. Thus, the general mission of the Boy Scouts is clear: to instill values in young people. The Boy Scout seeks to instill these values by having its adult leaders spend time with the youth members, instructing and engaging them in activities like camping, archery, and fishing. During the time spent with the youth members, the Scoutmasters and Assistant Scoutmasters inculcate them with the Boy Scout values, both expressly and by example. It seems indisputable that an association that seeks to transmit such a system of values engages in expressive activity. Given that the Boy Scouts engages in expressive activity, we must determine whether the forced inclusion of Dale as an assistant scoutmaster would significantly affect the Boy Scouts' ability to advocate public or private viewpoints. This inquiry necessarily requires us first to explore, to a limited extent, the nature of the Boy Scouts' views on homosexuality. The values, I'm not sure that's a step in the test, but nonetheless, the values the Boy Scouts seek to instill are based on those listed in the Scout Oath and Law. The Boy Scouts explain that the Scout Oath and Law provide a positive moral code for living. They are a list of do's rather than don'ts. The Boy Scouts assert that homosexual conduct is inconsistent with the values embodied in the Scout Oath and Law, particularly with the values represented by the terms morally straight and clean. Obviously, the Scout Oath and Law do not expressly mention sexuality or sexual orientation, and the terms morally straight and clean are by no means self-defining. Different people would attribute to those terms very different meanings. For example, some people may believe that engaging in homosexual conduct is at odds with being morally straight and clean, and others might believe that engaging in homosexual conduct is contrary to being morally straight and clean. The Boy Scouts says it falls within the latter category. The Boy Scouts publicly express its views with respect to homosexual conduct by its assertions in prior litigation. For example, throughout a California case with similar facts filed in the early 1980s, the Boy Scouts consistently asserted the same position with respect to homosexuality that it asserts today. We cannot doubt that the Boy Scouts sincerely hold this view. We must then determine whether Dale's presence as an assistant scoutmaster would significantly burden the... This is a second test. Unless they do believe it's the third. I'll call this one 1.5, where they talk about their views on homosexuality, but that was not a step in the analysis of our last case. Would Dale's presence significantly burden the Boy Scouts' desire to not promote homosexual conduct as a legitimate form of behavior? As we give deference to an association's assertions regarding the nature of its expression, we must also give deference to an association's view of what would impair its expression. That is not to say that an expressive association can erect a shield against anti-discrimination laws simply by asserting that their mere acceptance of a member from a particular group would impair its message. But here Dale, by his own admission, is one of the group of gay scouts who have become leaders in their community and are open and honest about their sexual orientation. Dale was the co-president of a gay and lesbian organization at college and remains a gay rights activist. Dale's presence in the Boy Scouts would, at the very least, force the organization to send a message both to the youth members and the world that the Boy Scouts accepts homosexual conduct as a legitimate form of behavior. Having determined that the Boy Scouts is an expressive association and that the forced inclusion of Dale would significantly affect its expression, we inquire whether the application of New Jersey's public accommodations law to require that the Boy Scouts accept Dale as an assistant scoutmaster runs afoul of the Scouts' freedom of expressive association. We conclude that it does. We are not, as we must not be, guided by our views of whether the Boy Scouts' teachings with respect to homosexual conduct are right or wrong. Public or judicial approval of a tenet of an organization's expression does not justify the state's effort to compel the organization to accept members where such an acceptance would derogate from the organization's expressive message. While the law is free to promote all sorts of conduct in place of harmful behavior, it is not free to interfere with speech for no better reason than promoting an improved message or discouraging a disfavored one. However, enlightening either purpose may strike the government. So, before going into a few pages of dissenting opinion, they made that analysis rather quickly because it would force, so why, acceptance of Dale would send a message contrary to their views, which is actually in line with the Hurley vs. Irish American Gay, Lesbian, and Bisexual Group of Boston from 1985. Remember, the Dale case is 2000. It's in Jersey. Yet they're using California as a precedent case. However, the facts are similar. Let's see what dissenters say. Justice Stevens, with whom Justice Souter and Justice Ginsburg and Justice Breyer joined dissenting. He says pride himself on judging each individual by his or her merits and on being in the vanguard in the fight to eradicate the cancer of unlawful discrimination of all types of our society. The New Jersey Supreme Court's construction of a statutory definition of a place of public accommodation has given stature a more expansive coverage than most similar state statutes. The question in this case is whether that expansive construction trenches on the federal constitutional rights of the Boy Scouts of America. In this case, BSA contends that it teaches the young boys who are Scouts that homosexuality is immoral. Consequently, it argues it would violate its right to associate to force it to admit homosexuals as members, as doing so would be at odds with its own shared goals and values. So that pretty much, in my opinion, is a holding for the case. This contention quite plainly requires us to look at exactly the values that BSA actually teaches. BSA's admission statement reads as follows. It is the mission of the Boy Scouts of America to serve others by helping to instill values in young people and in other ways to prepare them to make ethical choices for their lifetime in achieving their full potential. Its federal charter declares its purpose to promote through organization and cooperation with other agencies the ability of boys to do things for themselves and others, to train them in scoutcraft, and to teach them patriotism, courage, self-reliance, and kindred values. BSA describes itself as having a representative membership, which it defines as boy membership that reflects proportionately the characteristics of the boy population in service area. In particular, the group emphasizes that neither the charter nor the bylaws of the Boy Scouts of America permits the exclusion of any boy. To meet these responsibilities, we have made a commitment that our membership shall be representative of all the population in every community, district, and council. So it accepts all boys of any backgrounds. To bolster its claim that its shared goals include teaching that homosexuality is wrong, earlier they said immoral. Wrong, though, is the choice of words here. BSA directs our attention to two terms appearing in the Scout Oath and Law. The first is the phrase morally straight, which appears in the oath: on my honor, I will do my best to keep myself morally straight. The second term is the word clean, which appears in a list of 12 characteristics together comprising the Scout Law. The Scout Handbook defines morally straight as such: to be a person of strong character, guide your life with honesty, purity, and justice, respect and defend the rights of all people. Your relationship with others should be honest and open. Be clean in your speech and actions and faithful in your religious beliefs. The values you follow as a Scout will help you become virtuous and self-reliant. As to the term clean, the Boy Scout Handbook offers the following. A Scout is clean. A Scout keeps his body and mind fit and clean. He chooses the company of those who live by the same ideals. He helps keep his home and community clean. You never need to be ashamed of dirt that will wash off. If you play hard and work hard, you can't help getting dirty, but when the game is over and the work is done, that kind of dirt disappears with soap and water. There's another kind of dirt that won't come off by washing. It's the kind that shows up in foul language and harmful thoughts. Swear words, profanity, and dirty stories are weapons that ridicule other people and hurt their feelings. The same is true of racial slurs and jokes making fun of ethical groups or people with physical or mental limitations. A Scout knows where there is no kindness or honor in such mean-spirited behavior. He avoids it in his own words and deeds. He defends those who are targets of insults. It is plain as the light of day that neither one of these principles, morally straight and clean, says the slightest thing about homosexuality. Indeed, neither term in the Boy Scouts law and oath expresses any position whatsoever on sexual matters. BSA's published guidance on that topic underscores this point. Scouts, for example, are directed to receive their sex education at home or in school, but not from the organization. Your parents or guardian or a sex education teacher should give you the facts about sex that you must know. Boy Scout Handbook, 1992. Moreover, Scout members are specifically directed to steer curious adolescents to other sources of information. If Scouts ask you information regarding sexual activity, answer honestly and factually, but stay within your realm of expertise and comfort. If a Scout has serious concerns that you cannot answer, refer him to his family, religious leader, doctor, or other professional. In light of BSA's self-proclaimed ecumenism, furthermore, it is even more difficult to discern any shared values shared values or common moral stance on homosexuality. Insofar as religious matters are concerned, BSA's bylaws state that it is absolutely non-sectarian in its attitude towards religious training, because a number of religious groups do not view homosexuality as immoral or wrong and reject discrimination against homosexuals. It is exceedingly difficult to believe that BSA nonetheless adopts a single particular religious or moral philosophy when it comes to sexual orientation. BSA surely is aware that some religions do not teach that homosexuality is wrong. In JCs, we asked whether Minnesota's human rights law requiring the admission of women impose any serious burdens on the group's collective effort on behalf of its shared goals. Notwithstanding the group's obvious publicly stated exclusionary policy, we did not view the inclusion of women as a serious burden on the JC's ability to engage in the protected speech of its choice. Similarly, in Rotary Club, we asked whether California's law would affect in any significant way the existing members' ability to engage in their protected speech, on whether the law would require the clubs to abandon their basic goals. The relevant question is whether the mere inclusion of a person at issue would impose any serious burden, affect in any serious way, or be a substantial restraint upon an organization's shared goals, basic goals, or collective efforts to foster beliefs. The evidence before the court makes it exceptionally clear that BSA has, at most, simply adopted an exclusionary membership policy and has no shared goal of disapproving of homosexuality. BSA's mission statement and federal charter say nothing on the matter. Its official membership policy is silent. Its Scout oath and law and accompanying definitions are devoid of any view on the topic. The guidance for Scouts and Scoutmasters on sexuality declare that the matters are not construed to be scouting proper area, but are the province of a Scout's parents, and pastor. The BSA's posture respecting religion tolerates a wide variety of views on the issue of homosexuality. Moreover, there is simply no evidence that the BSA otherwise teaches anything in this area, or that it instructs Scouts on matters involving homosexuality in ways not conveyed in the Boy Scout or Scoutmaster's Handbook. In short, Boy Scouts of America is simply silent on homosexuality. There is no shared goal or collective effort to foster a belief about homosexuality at all, let alone one that is significantly burdened by admitting homosexuals. As in JCs, there is no basis in the record for concluding that admission of homosexuals will impede the Boy Scouts' ability to engage in its protected activities or to disseminate its preferred views, and New Jersey's law requires no change in BSA's creed. It is entirely clear that BSA, in fact, expresses no clear, unequivocal message burdened by New Jersey's law. Unfavorable opinions about homosexuals have ancient roots, like equally atavistic opinions about certain racial groups. These roots have been nourished by sectarian doctrine that such prejudices are still prevalent and that they have caused serious and tangible harm to countless members of the class in New Jersey. Seeks to protect our established matters of fact that neither the Boy Scouts nor the court disputes. That harm can only be aggravated by the creation of a constitutional shield for a policy that is itself the product of a habitual way of thinking about strangers. As Justice Brandeis so wisely advised, we must be ever on guard lest we erect our prejudices into legal principles. If we would guide by the light of reason, we must let our minds be bold. My criticism of this case is that we never really talk about the state interest and whether or not it is compelling and necessary. I think the dissent ought to do that, then assume that the Boy Scouts of America is not a Christian creed, and that they would be asked to reject their religion by accepting homosexual assistant scoutmaster.